The Bill Clark Show, presented by Dr. Pepper. And now, Coach Bill Clark.
Welcome into another edition of the Bill Clark Show, presented by Dr. Pepper and Buffalo Rock. Molly Robinson, Landrum Robinson, Pat Smith, along with Coach Bill Clark. And Coach, we have hit that time of the season where it's now every weekend huge games.
Yeah, I mean, this is I know you guys have gotten to talk about it all day today and the whole week. Just, man, what a great slate of games Saturday. You know, that's when you need the 4 games going at once, and we're going to be wanting to watch them all.
Yeah, this would have been a weekend prior to a 12-team college football playoff. We call it Separation Saturday. Now It's changed just a little bit, but we'll get a better idea of Alabama. We'll get a better idea of that Georgia squad. Can Auburn bounce back after a loss in Norman? And are teams like Ole Miss,
right,
Oregon, Penn State, for that matter, are they for real?
Yeah, and this is what you want. You want to see what happens when the really good ones play. And this is where we talk about the rarefied air, when it counts. You're good, but are you great? And that's what we're looking for.
All right, let's go back to last weekend in Norman, Oklahoma. You did a great job on last week's show, kind of diagramming John Mateer, the defense. What surprised you out of the outcome of the game? Not the result, but just the way you saw how that game played out.
You know, I was really thinking I had saw good things out of Auburn. I thought that continued. I think Oklahoma did an excellent job, and this is where we saw Venables to really be the defensive coordinator. The great job of getting inside the 10 sacks, I still think a lot of credit's got to go to Oklahoma for that. I think, how bad was Auburn's O-line? I do think we talked about Jackson Arnold holding the ball a little too long. But I do think Auburn showed a lot of really good qualities that's 8, 9 plus wins. But the question is always, can you win those games that come down to the end? Because that's going to be the question mark.
How much can a game like that help a quarterback in the case of Jackson Arnold?
Yeah, I think between Baylor and that game, that's 2 games that he can point to on the road where he performed well. And it was just kind of like who had the ball last. They had some things happen right there at the very end, but you got to give him credit. 4th down plays when you need. I think that put a lot of confidence in him by the offense.
So as you're watching the game unfold and you're seeing the Auburn offensive line give up 10 sacks, and I know you're not looking at all 22, so you're not really sure exactly what's going on. If it's a sack from the secondary, or it's a problem with the offensive line. Did you feel like that the Oklahoma defense was doing something, whether they were stunting, stemming, doing whatever they were doing to give these problems to the Auburn offensive line?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to go. You got one of the best minds in college football on the defensive side. I mean, this is a guy who has been the defensive coordinator year after year after year, comes from the great lineage of K-State and Oklahoma. So you got a really good guy over there who arguably has the best D-line they've had in however many years. So I think a lot of credit's got to go to Oklahoma. I do think, and I said this because if it was me, I was going to make this guy beat me, and I'm referring to Jackson. He's going to have to beat me with his arm. And you saw every time you saw a 4-man rush where they didn't really muddy the middle up good enough, and they dropped that middle linebacker out. And you know what I'm talking about? Into some forms of Tampa, too, where the Mike's run in the middle of the field, he took off. And so you didn't see a lot of that. I don't know if I would have done it any, because that's what he was looking for. The question I had about him, and I think he answered it to a degree, what do you do when I say, you're not going to run the ball on those downs. We're going to muddy the middle up. We're going to make you beat us throwing the ball.
Offensively, what do you think maybe that brain trust that Auburn learned in that game that maybe they'll use moving forward, especially this weekend, as far as maybe it's deep shots to Cam Coleman?
Absolutely.
Running the football more RPO action, some of the underneath stuff. It just seemed like that wasn't there.
Yeah, I think they did take shots to Cam Coleman, but you got to take more. I mean, to me, and that's that. If we have not thrown him the ball down the field 8 times, that's 2 a quarter. And you say, well, what if it's incomplete? You got to be ready for that. But I mean, the other side of that is 50-50 balls where that guy is 70-30 balls or 80-20 balls. He's that good. You got a quarterback that can make the throw, and now it's just giving him a chance to make the play. So my thought is they've got to stop our run game, to stop Arnold running the ball. They've got to get to forms of one high. I mean, there's ways to get to that, especially as good as they run the ball, and then to take those shots more often.
The other side story to the game was the officiating, in which the SEC had to come out and they clarified a rule interpretation that was obviously not looked at the proper way in that game. And it goes without saying, we had people call the show, and you talked about it Monday on your visit on Three Man Front, but I wanted to get your perspective on this. When the officials come to you prior to a game, are they openly asking you, hey, coach, are you going to be running something that we need to be aware of? Is that the conversation that you're having?
Yeah, that is the exact conversation, along with what do you see out of the opponent that gives you pause? I mean, what are you going to say? They hold every down? Mine would be, and we played those guys that I said, this is not holding. We understand hands inside. And I would just start flipping through a notebook. I've got pictures of a guy tackling people. And I said, they have a problem. They grab at the top of routes. If I could show it to them, and of course they'd be like.
Now, when does that meeting take place? When's that conversation? Yeah,
this is early on before, this is as you're just getting there. You've got people starting to come out on the field an hour before the game. They've got somebody there to take care of the official. So you're going to get the head official and two guys with him. They're also going to say, all right, what do we need to be made aware of from you? Special formation, special plays. Well, it's like, hey, we're tempo, we're whatever, but you've got a trick play you need to be aware of. We've got a tight end lining up at the tackle spot, and we're, like we show with Oklahoma on that 2-point play. Just don't get confused by that. Or our manner of play, which a lot of times might be tempo. They love to tempo. Now, if they sub somebody, you've got to stand over the ball and give us time to get somebody on there. You understand what I'm saying? Georgia, they're not just stemming, they're causing you to jump. Of course, that was a joke when I was dealing with SEC officials, but that was something they covered. The official was outside of him. He's saying, because if not, he'd have thrown a flag. He's too close sideline, it's whatever it is. So they should have if they thought it was. Obviously, they'd been talked to about it, and that's why the official was outside of him.
I know we're not here to bash the officiating crew. The SEC came out, as Pat mentioned, they made the statement. But watching that football game, not just that particular play, did you think that it was any more poorly officiated than a lot of the games that you'd seen at that level?
I thought the first half was bad. And I thought it's like, who called them at halftime to say you're throwing too many flags? Because that's what it seemed, right? You're calling everything, which doesn't let the game flow. Now, you got to call the big things, but they were calling everything the first half. Then the second half, they let them play. Now, we all say, all right, what's the play they should have let go and what's the ones they shouldn't if it affects us, right? But I think the problem with that, if the spirit of the law, of the rule, I should say, was that subterfuge they shouldn't let it go. My thing is always, well, you must have not spelled it out good enough for people not to know that. Now, I told y'all the story. Back in high school, that's what we had to look at. That's the thing. The hideout play, whatever you want to call it, we're always looking for the official because we saw it in high school. Didn't see it a lot, but that was something we talked about all the time.
It's quickly, I just want to follow up. As far as punishment, penalty for that crew.
Yeah.
If they're reprimanded. Not that and I know that you've been in different conferences, but what would your best guess be as to the reprimand?
If they were truly reprimanded, which it sounded like, then they would miss the next week's game and or postseason play if it was bad enough. I don't know if they considered it bad enough.
Have you ever had a situation where a call happened at a game for you, against you, whatever the case may be, where you either got a call from the commissioner of the conference or maybe the head official of the conference and call you to clarify something or to apologize to you?
Yeah, La Tech, we had a end of the game.
That was awful.
Yeah, we're down probably on the inch line with a knee as he's going into the end zone with the ball. Bang, bang, his knee's down as he puts the ball across the goal line. So, of course, the ball hits the ground and the goal line and pops up. They let it play. They said, we're going to let the camera make the call. They have no camera there. And it was obvious he was either down or it was a touchdown. I mean, it's one of the two. Could have been either one, been second in inches, from on the goal line in that game, And so they just line up and kick a field goal in overtime, And then, of course, we get a penalty for running it, sliding into the kicker after that. So got an apology from the commissioner, got an apology from the head officials. And then the crew, we had them in the next, at the end of the year against Rice before we made the championship game. I had the same crew. Of course, got an apology from the head official and everybody.
That was here in Birmingham, right?
No, that was when we played them at Rice during COVID. When I only couldn't fill up the plane, didn't have enough people hardly to even make the trip. But we won the game, and they were apologetic. First half, I didn't know that they were even apologetic because of the way the game was called. So
How do you address your team after a loss like that when there's a glaring missed call, no call that goes against you?
I remember being a manager on a game when my dad was the coach. The other team comes down. They've got people standing up, moving. The runner gets tackled, obviously, 2 yards short of the goal line. They're up by 4, so they can't kick a field goal. And the guy just kind of crawls into the end zone. People are moving, turn around. An official comes from the side. Everybody's saying no. One official comes in, touchdown. I thought it was going to be a riot to the field, but they lose, right? Of course, you get the apology. But after the game, trying to explain that to a team like us after La Tech it's hard. Because what do you say to your kids?
Yeah. But my favorite part, and since Landrum and I both call baseball at times as umpires, it's like a home plate umpire making a call at second base when the second base umpire is standing right there. It gets me how so many times you'll have an official out of pocket or out of position, and you'll have a side judge make a call when the back judge should be making that call.
I don't know if y'all remember, we played Liberty, and we're up 10, so we go into the end zone with a touchdown. And as our guys going into the end zone, running back comes in there and hits one of their guys in the chest. Our running back hits him in the chest, but it's such a great block, he knocks him. So we're going into the end zone. He hits the guy just as we go into the end zone. From their sideline on about the 40. Personal foul.
Blindside, right?
Yeah. He's over on their sideline, calls for us for a personal foul at home, which is irrelevant, but it was like, you're not even in position to make this call. You made the wrong call, game-changing type call. Oh, and you're not even in position. Yeah, that, as you can tell.
Was that the one at Protective Stadium?
That was the one, opening night against Liberty, where we're leading.
Remember that?
Yep. And literally hits the guy square in the chest. And I'm watching it as it happens. He's on their sideline. So he's 40 yards away as the ball's going in the end zone. And then it's going to come over there and argue with me. That's when it really gets bad.
So take us through, clean up that conversation. I want to hear.
He came across.
I want to hear this, how he was trying to defend his call to you.
That's what makes it even worse. I was watching it. I said, you threw a penalty from the far sideline. No doubt it's a personal foul. I said, no doubt. You threw the flag from almost midfield on a guy that hits. I said, now, what's going to happen? I'm going to show you this after the game. You have changed the course of this game. Adamant and arrogant about it. And you can see, if you'd have just said, Coach, I may have missed that. That would have been bad. But to be so arrogant and adamant. Now, of course, I get an apology. Not like the La Tech game where it changed the whole game at the end. I'm like, but to be so arrogant about it, and I was talking to some officials. I was speaking at the Park and Rec Association board down in Orange Beach. I was talking to an official, been doing it all these years. Great demeanor. You could just tell this guy understood how to approach a coach. And he said, look, if I had a guy that missed a call, I would go with the coach and say, Coach, we could have missed that one, but, it's going to have to stand. It was called. Just, if you want to vent to me right now, go and vent. I said, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't understand from calling high school. I mean, I call baseball. I mean, there's times when you say, we could have missed that.
Absolutely.
But I know this is your job. I know this is your livelihood. We're going to try and make every call. It's not purposeful. I can handle that a lot better than you're going to come over there arrogantly on one that I knew you missed.
I've got a worse one for you. I'm doing a championship game. This is a big all-star tournament. And my home plate umpire, and I'm out in the field. Play at the plate, bang, bang. He freezes.
Oh, no call.
Points to me. Oh, yeah. I rule the guy out because he didn't slide, which was the right call. But the optics of it.
Right.
Oh, then they want to go. They want to file a protest. Right. It's just how it all happened.
Yep.
The call, we got the call right.
Good.
At the end of the day. But the process didn't make things any easier.
No, he should have made the call.
Yep.
And then if they want to appeal, then you guys get together, and then he tells Landrum, hey, look, I was blocked. I didn't see it. I froze. What do you got? And then at that point, you fix it.
I remind him about that all the time because he's now a high school coach.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, don't you ever get on to
I better not say you getting on official.
You remember that all-star game we did?
Well, and I think that's the thing when this is your livelihood. And that was the thing that would bother me when I felt like there was a bias. I'm playing everybody from Texas, and wait a second, this guy's from Texas. We're from Alabama. We may not have a choice, but we kind of like the teams from Alabama, and then you start seeing it, all right, explain this is how this keeps happening over and over and over. I used to say that in high school. I loved the playoffs because you would get somebody from somewhere else. They
Another
weren't
region.
local.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like they were mad or they didn't like us. And I could relax then. And I always thought when I could get to a game and I felt like the guys were just going to be professional, especially when every play, every down is going to be judged, rewinded, how I made a call. And that's how I feed my family, and I'm feeding a bunch of other coaches' families as well.
I can't remember, Pat, if he told this on the show. So don't answer this if you didn't. But wasn't there a time before a game you had an official that maybe you had a crew that you had a history with or something that had happened in a previous season where the official kind of pulled you to the side before the game and said, hey, coach, just FYI, you're not going to get any breaks?
Yeah. Yeah, I could give you multiple stories of that where we went on the road and I had a guy who had been in our conference who told me that.
That's unbelievable.
We ended up with 165 yards in penalties.
Oh.
The opponent had 15. And of course, your fans are just like, we go on to win the next 8. So we weren't too bad. And that's what I get aggravated about when you do care about discipline and your kids know. Now, they're going to be aggressive, but they're going to say, yes, sir. They're going to say, no, sir. They're going to do the right thing. I mean, we talk about how to address an official. What did Michael Jordan know? He knew how to say they're not, all those things. I mean, this is not a team that wasn't coached. And then, of course, first thing you hear is that you're undisciplined in a game. I mean, but when an official sits there and looks straight ahead and says, Coach, this game's going to be called very, very close, and I say both ways, and he went and walks off.
Oh boy.
And can you imagine?
Coach, 165 yards. What if I'm the officiating crew and I want to get back at you? I'm not going to set the record in the FBS for penalty yards. I'm going to try to be a little bit more inconspicuous, right?
We had more personal fouls, more, and it's just that's when you create this worry.
Yeah.
I've lived it. I've seen it. Now 99% are good.
Sure.
They care. It's like coaches. Same thing. The 1% who gets on the numbers and does the bad things and cusses and all those things that you shouldn't do. And that's in any industry. But it's like I say, when I'm gonna get judged on every play. So
it's hard enough to win football games. You don't need anybody else working against you.
Well, and I'm sitting here saying in this deal, it sounds like that there was and I'm defending the officials to a point because it sounds like they didn't know. It sounds like they didn't know. Somebody did not explain to them that that's something that should have been off limits from the conference.
If you had a coordinator that after a score they showed him shooting a bird on TV, would you have a problem with that?
It's going to who you're shooting the bird at. But you're talking about reference to us, to my team?
Yeah. I mean, it was the Oklahoma offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle.
Oh, you're talking about him.
Yeah,
Yes.
he was
I
showing
saw that
shooting the
picture.
bird after the play in question.
Yes. Yes. Oh yeah. I've seen the other coach do all kind of things.
Well, one thing you don't have to worry about is when you go into Smart Bank, because once you go into Smart Bank, you won't have to deal with all the craziness that we've been talking about from an officiating.
Well, I had a friend of mine today. In fact, it was Jimmy Lee. I was with our good friend Jimmy Lee, and he said, "Boy, the guys at Smart Bank are doing well." I guess he's looking at their balance sheet or stock or all those things. And I said, "Yeah." And it goes back though to how I think they treat people. I think how they treat people is permeates throughout their the company, and that's why they're doing well.
Coach, the Alabama Crimson Tide, they head between the hedges, Athens, Georgia night game against the Georgia Bulldogs. A lot is going to be told about this Alabama team after Saturday night.
Absolutely. I love the open date with the two teams. We got a running back coming back, supposedly. I think to see these two teams, is Alabama this different team from that Florida State? Georgia found a way to win. We're still talking about that. But, how do they defend them? What do they do different? Georgia's had this bird in their saddle after last year. Man, there's so many great storylines to this game. It's really exciting.
Based on what Alabama's offense and Ty Simpson does well, You know Kirby's defense. You know that thing like the back of your hand and how they do things. What is the biggest challenge for Alabama offensively Saturday?
I think they're going to watch Tennessee. What did Tennessee do? What did they do early? Where was the adjustments made? Because that's something you're going to try and use. I think running game or lack thereof. Running game or lack thereof. Can they stay in that too high safety? And they do a great job of mixing it up and doing other things. What did Alabama? Alabama broke out a whole new plan last year. So I'm really excited about this chess match with the open date, the different things. I think you're going to see some things differently that you've seen. But can Alabama run the ball good enough to make Georgia have to defend it?
One thing is for sure, both of these teams defensively, I think they're like in the 100s in sacks. And I'm talking about the defense penetrating the backfield, getting a sack on the quarterback. Alabama and Georgia, very rare do we look at the statistics and not see Georgia and Alabama's up very high in that particular category. What have you seen from an Alabama perspective? Do they just not have the dudes up front to make the push? I mean, what do you see with the Alabama defense?
That's a great question. So, and I think let's go back to Oklahoma. Oklahoma has the guys, but he was constantly bringing another guy. He was constantly showing you one thing, bringing somebody from somewhere else. Georgia and Alabama both, I think, very built from the same mode of technique first. I think now they mix it up a really good bit. I don't think they're quite as exotic. And I may have been in that category where I let the guys with the technique. Now, if I can get you to third down, you're in trouble. But I don't think they have the guys that they've had. I mean, now you're talking about freak shows, that were setting records for the most first-round draft choices and the most guys in the NFL. And I think they've got good players. I don't think they have, obviously, the dominant players they've had, and it's showing up in the sack total.
How much emphasis does Kirby Smart and that staff put on taking away Ryan Williams, and how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, I think he's going to be part of that from what you saw. You're going to have to know where he's at. The fact that he has moved into the slot, that's a little different. I don't think you can take him away as quite as much if he really is starting to understand that position. I talked, about that, about it's a whole different mindset. You got a lot more chances to get open middle of the field, crossing routes across the field. I don't know if you got as many opportunities for the shots, but I think you got a lot better chance with a slot receiver, which is why they moved him there to get him open, find ways to get in the ball.
In regards to Ty Simpson, he's looked really good after Tallahassee. Granted, the opposition, not the Georgia Bulldogs, but what have you seen from him from a confidence standpoint as he's heading in between the hedges?
I tell you what, he's been super impressive, and I think his accuracy is really. I mean, I know that kind of almost goes without saying. I've watched him run the ball. I think him in the pot. I think his poise in the pocket. That Florida State game, I'd like to go back and really study that game some more and just see the things they did. I think they were really surprised. They had a whole off season to work on them. I think the running game not being there, all those things affect him. But man, he's been lights out the last 2 weeks. Things he's done that really would be very impressive just on air.
While Ty Simpson, I would put him as the better quarterback going into this game. I still think that Gunnar Stockton is getting undersold a little bit, and maybe nationally, but the guy's tough as nails. You saw the throws. What have you seen from Gunnar Stockton that leads you to believe that he can lead Georgia to a win?
Well, first, they're going to get great players. I mean, I think having picked him and letting Carson Beck kind of go, right? I mean, I think they've seen a lot of things. We saw his toughness in the playoffs. He made really, really good throws in that game. He's got good legs. I mean, it's just going to be a good quarterback battle between those two guys. And he came into a game and really found a way to win for his team. So you got to give him tons of credit for that.
All right, so how do you see this coming or playing out in regards to the Alabama-Georgia game? Do you think it's going to be a low-scoring defensive battle, high-scoring game? Think Bama can overcome whatever issues they've had on the road under Kalen DeBoer and get a W?
Yeah, I think there's going to be points scored. I do. I don't know if it'll be the Tennessee, but I think 30s, maybe 31-28. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting with the fact that Alabama beat Georgia last year and Georgia's so hungry to win this game. I do think we've seen a different Alabama team. I think it could go either way. I would probably go with Georgia in this one, just because of the fact of having lost it. Now, I really think Alabama has really improved. I really do, even though they hadn't played the teams. It's going to be hard to beat Georgia there with the burr in their saddle from last year.
Who's the best team in the SEC? right now?
Yeah, I mean, if we go statistically, we're going to go LSU. But I think if Mateer's well, I would have picked Oklahoma. That's my pick. Now, with a broken hand.
That defensive line legit?
They're legit. They're legit, and the guy calling the plays is legit. You've got an offensive coach that understands the quarterback. He's a winner. That's my pick is the best team. Now, you got so many people that are close. I mean, my gosh. Tennessee, LSU, Georgia, Alabama, they're all – I mean, we're going to see about Alabama. I think that's the – I would have said Tennessee was the better team out of that game in Georgia, but the fact of Georgia, how they're built, and that's what counts. Who wins in the end?
Somebody made a good point to us on Three Man Front the other day, and I never really thought about it. And I know you're not into point spreads, but look at the point spreads that you're seeing in SEC games in particular. Kind of illustrates the parity that we're seeing with a lot of these rosters.
It's unreal, and and of course we could be, if we're talking about other schools, how tough it is and how they've been able to take your star and make him either a starter or the number two. I mean, look at Vincent's guy at Monroe. I mean, is he leading the nation in rushing? I think he is.
Hardy.
Yeah. I mean, what would he be doing at Monroe right now? He's a starter, but how many of those guys have they gotten that are the backups now?
Poor old Ferris State, Trinidad Chambliss for Ole Miss.
Now, let's just go through the list. But now, if I'm just wanting to watch great SEC football, man, there's parity, there's depth, there's all those things. There's great coaching. So, it makes for some really good games to watch.
I know you really enjoy driving around in your Tahoe each and every week.
I really do. Our friends at Donahue, obviously they're sponsoring us on Three Man Front at the first of the week. But the thing, once again, and I say this all the time, it's about people and it's about relationships. And when you got quality folks that you can trust, obviously DonahueChevrolet.com, you can go find all the great deals.
And also, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Webb Concrete and Building Services.
Yeah, Phil, once again, Phil Webb is as good a person as there are, and he's got locations all over the place. Obviously, we always talk about Pell City because I got a son working for him, but flooring, concrete, all the things to build your house, I got it.
All right, so Landrum just asked you about the SEC. So let's talk nationally. If Bill Clark was voting for the top 10 in college football, oh my gosh, he's got a list.
I've got a list. Look at this sticky note.
He's got a list.
Don't all coaches, right?
I mean, I love making lists. So,
okay.
We
I
can
don't
get
know.
Bigger paper, Coach.
I know, but this is fits
I'm
me.
impressed he can read it.
Yeah, I don't. My arm needs to be a little longer.
You need my readers?
No, I don't think there's really any big thing for me other than, obviously we've all got Ohio State and Miami, and Miami's been impressive to me.
Very
Ohio
much.
State, we're still waiting to see, how big was that win on Texas? Because I've downgraded Texas out of the top 10 for myself. Penn State, we're going to get to see them in Oregon this week. Mm-hmm. LSU, the Georgia at 5. All you can do is go on what you've seen with Oregon 6. Oklahoma is the team, quarterback. I might have had them even ahead.
So you got them at 7.
I've got them at 7, FSU at 8, Texas A&M at 9, and I've got Indiana at 10.
Indiana at 10. So I
think Indiana's better than last year.
Yeah, and we got a quarterback that could be.
He'll be in the SEC next year.
Probably so. Good point.
All right. Well, speaking of that, what about your Heisman list? You got a list of
now.
Heisman?
I go to my phone for the Heisman list.
Wow.
So I got to use the technology. So I think the names. We talk about Mateer. I've said a lot about Carson Beck. He's doing it. Mm-hmm. I've got him at 2, but Mendoza, our guy from Indiana, has got to be considered. I'm looking forward to seeing our guy to Oregon more. And then, of course, the normal guys. I just don't see how Arch Manning's still even in the conversation. So, to me, it's Mateer, it's Beck, and then we'll see a lot more about Mendoza this week.
Well, it's interesting because Conrad Van Order on our show, he's got Arch Manning 15th out of 16 quarterbacks in the SEC.
Yeah, only the Kentucky backup, who's now a starter, behind him.
Yeah, we know he's still got talent, and we saw that in the Ohio State game. I think he's got the bloodlines, he's got the running ability, but something is off, and so does he get better? We saw La Monroe go beat El Paso, and they gave him
a problem.
Gave him a problem. So we're going to see his body of work, but right now, he's struggling.
Well, it's been another quick 30 minutes. We appreciate everybody tuning us in each and every week right here on Jocks, and, of course, everywhere where you can get your podcasts. Man, Jimmy Lee, Buffalo Rock, Dr. Pepper, we appreciate them greatly, too.
Absolutely. Just have been with us for years, and we appreciate them.
No doubt about it. We hope to see you next week right here on The Bill Clark Show, presented by Dr. Pepper. For Molly Landrum, I'm Pat. That's Coach. Have a great week.
This has been the Bill Clark Show, presented by Dr. Pepper.